Hello and welcome. Rolls-Royce developed the Merlin engine in 1933, taking a gamble that the RAF would award them a contract. That they did, installing it in the Ferry Battle, Hawker Hurricane and Supermarine Spitfire. Later, it even replaced the Packard engine in the American Mustang. The majority of Merlin production went into the very successful Avro Lancaster bomber. The first Merlins developed 1,000 horsepower, increasing to 2,000 horsepower by war's end. Such engines went into the de Havilland Hornet, which had been developed to counter the Mitsubishi A6M-0 in the Pacific War. Captain Eric Winkle Brown described flying the powerful Hornet as delightful.
I've often thought of this. I would say, without any question in my mind, the de Havilland Hornet. It was a beautiful, instinctively beautiful shape, and it just looked right. It has that rare quality which so often is missing in aircraft. It was overpowered. This was delightful, to such an extent that I used to give aerobatic shows in this aircraft and do the whole show on one engine, and eventually do a loop with both feathered. It was that type of airplane. It was very, very streamlined, very, very fast, and if you dived it down, obviously at full power, just before you pull up your feather, and you have enough inertia there to carry you right through the loop with no problem at all. But it was that type of airplane.
The Merlin did have its drawbacks. It had a carburetor instead of fuel injection, and that proved a problem when an aircraft experienced negative G. First, there was too little fuel and then too much. Spitfire pilots might suddenly dive to avoid an ME-109 only to find their Merlin sputter. It was engineer Miss Tilly Schilling who came up with the disc with a hole in it to prevent excess fuel flooding the Merlin from the carburetor. This was crudely forever known as Miss Schilling's orifice.
When a fatal flaw was discovered in the Spitfire's Merlin engine.
So Richard, what was the problem? Imagine we're right behind a Messerschmitt and suddenly he dives. If we were to follow him, the fuel got thrown up inside the carburetor,
Right.
and it would cause too much fuel to go in, and so the engine would have coughed and spluttered
Right.
and briefly cut out, and he'd have got away.
The excess fuel problem wasn't just inconvenient, it was deadly.
Were pilots killed because of the hole?
Oh yes.
This was a national emergency.
Plane. If you had a Messerschmitt up your rear end and you was trying to get out of the way, that would be frightening.
Tilly found the solution to the engine problem, and it was incredibly simple.
Tilly came up with this bright idea of working out exactly how much fuel that the engine would need, and then she designed this washer with exactly the right hole so that it restricted the amount of fuel that would go up into the engine, and it continued to produce power.
With their engines restored, Spitfires played a crucial role in Britain's air war, thanks to Tilly's washer.
Just a washer.
In fact, I've got one here.
There was one Spitfire that could perform an inverted dive without flooding. The Germans had acquired a Spitfire and retrofitted a fuel-injected Daimler-Benz engine.
The Germans got hold of one or two Spitfires and retrofitted it with the inverted Daimler-Benz engine with its fuel injection system. That aeroplane was tested and was proved to be quite manoeuvrable.
Here is Graham Rogers of the Imperial War Museum, Duxford, speaking about the Merlin.
The Rolls-Royce Merlin engine. A lot of people remember the Merlin engine for the famous aeroplanes, the Spitfire, the Hurricane, the Mustang, the Lancaster. The Merlin was also used in aeroplanes like the Ferry Battle and the Bolton Paul Defiant. But in all its production life, over 50 different development types of the Merlin were produced. From the initial just over 1,000 horsepower to right at the end of the war, and a beautiful aeroplane, the de Havilland Hornet, with a 2-speed, 2-stage and intercooled supercharged Merlin engine, giving 2,050 horsepower each, 2 of them. Rolls-Royce have made a lot of very successful aero engines, some not so successful in the Peregrine and the Vulture, some more successful in the Kestrel and the Merlin. Rolls-Royce developed the engine from 1933 from an engine called the PV12. Initially of about 900 to 990 horsepower on the bench, then in full production once made reliable in the Mark I Spitfire and the Hurricane with over 1100 horsepower. The Merlin engine is a small engine. I won't say it's the Mini A series of the aviation world, it's 27 litres. For our friends across the pond, that's about 1,650, just less, cubic inches. Against a Daimler-Benz 601 from Germany at 39 litres and the BMW 801 series in the Focke-Wulf 190 at 42 litres, it's a very compact, small little engine. So with the help of the 100 octane fuel developed in the USA at the time, this little Merlin engine was fantastic for development.
What about the Merlin engine? What was your opinion about that?
That was marvelous. That was a wonderful piece of machinery. There's no doubt about it. It was the making of the Spitfire, and it was the making of the fact that the Rolls-Royce went on producing more and more power out of the Merlin. That's what enabled the Spitfire to be developed to the extent that it was. It was a very happy partnership between Rolls-Royce and Supermarines.
As magnificent as the Rolls-Royce Merlin engine is, it did have a few flaws. Carburettor fed. As I've said in previous videos, a negative G manoeuvre would result in the carburettor flooding and the engine missing and coughing. Not good in the middle of a dogfight. The header tank for the coolant was right at the front. Initially, the coolant was ethanol glycol, very flammable if it was hit by an incendiary round. Later on, diluted and pressured, not so much of a problem, but initially quite a worry. Once a P51 that became the Mustang had been fitted with the Rolls-Royce Merlin, the Allison engine, like I've said before, a very good strong engine, but getting a little bit asthmatic at high level. Tested here at the Air Fighting Development Unit, the Mustang fitted with a Rolls-Royce Merlin engine became the world-beating aeroplane, and no matter how many times I hear a Merlin engine, I am never bored or find it complacent. To me, it is the most beautiful sounding engine of all time. By the end of the war, over 150,000 of these magnificent engines have been made, and the contribution of this engine to the war effort and to the final victory of the Allies cannot be understated.
Thank you for watching. Comments always welcome. Liking and subscribing encourages more content.